I'm a reviewer known for talking about niche fragrances more than anything else, but here's a list of reasons why niche fragrances suck. There's a lot of reasons why I think niche fragrances as a whole have a lot of negative points that I don't like about them. And I'm going to get into a little bit in this video of reasons why I don't like many niche fragrances. The first obvious one to me is the misconception of cost to value, in terms of just because something is expensive doesn't mean it actually has value. And I see that a lot with niche brands where they cost a lot of money, but what you're getting in return is in my opinion, not providing you value as a customer. You're just paying for the brand name. And that goes for not just fragrances, but as a whole in the fashion world, you pay for the name, and doesn't necessarily mean what it's made out of is really high quality. And that annoys me about niche, specifically in fragrance. Just because you put it with a high price tag doesn't mean it's good. A lot of the time the quality is like indie level quality, sometimes even only just matching the higher end kind of designer stuff like Dior and Chanel, you know, designers that use good quality materials. And these niche fragrances are charging a lot more but not giving you the value. It's annoying to me, and I smell a lot of it in niche. The way that materials are advertised and listed on fragrances, more so in the niche world, people will list things like oud, Ambiguity, and these really expensive kind of notes in a niche fragrance. They won't tell you anything other than that, other than those are the notes. And it's up to you to imagine that those must be real because this fragrance costs £200 or whatever it costs. There's no way that this uses real stuff. Like, some do, some don't. But the point is, there's ambiguity there which lets you just believe whatever you want. And that annoys me, especially if a niche brand is putting oud in the name of the fragrance and there's no oud in there. It's like it's annoying because you see, especially with the oud, it's overtaken so much in modern fragrances that literally everything is oud, and it's sunken into the designer world. And people are now sick and tired of hearing about oud, but they're not smelling real oud. They don't know what real oud is because they're just used to smelling this cheap shit in fragrances that have oud in the name that has nothing remotely to do with oud. That's annoying. I don't mean to like pick on the oud concept, but it's an obvious one to talk about. But in general, materials, if vanilla is listed on a note breakdown of a niche fragrance, is it using an actual Madagascan vanilla tincture or is it using vanillin? There's a big difference, at least to me there is. But some brands and some perfumers don't think that's an issue. They think, well, vanilla's vanilla, and if it smells of vanilla, who cares? But the point is, if you're selling something, I just feel like it should be a clear point to me that, you know, there is a clear difference in quality between real vanilla and vanillin, and real rose and an artificial rose, and real oud and synthetic oud, or an oud accord. There is an obvious difference, and that should reflect into the pricing of a fragrance, and it should be displayed for you to make up your own mind whether you feel that value is appropriate or worthwhile or not. And you can't judge that if you don't know, and that's the problem. They don't tell you, so you don't know. There's a lot of points in niche fragrances that I don't like, which brings me on to the next problem of niche fragrances, which in general is cost. Most of them are too expensive. Most of them charge more than what the thing is worth, which is fine. People have to make a profit. I understand how business works. but some of them take the piss. I'll give you some examples. Clive Christian is an excellent example of a company that takes the piss out of their customers. I was in Vegas with Timmy and they had a new addictive arts collection, and they were, from memory, they were between $700 to $800, and I was like, excuse me, what? It's not just, do I even have to explain? Like, that is not worth that amount of money. Unless the whole thing is in pure ambergris tincture of the finest quality, it's not worth the money. And that brings me on to the next point, is that just because something uses high quality materials, like natural ambergris, natural oud, whatever, it can use really good quality materials. It doesn't, by deficit, make that fragrance good. It can still smell crap, even with really good quality ingredients. So just because it is using really good stuff doesn't necessarily mean that people should revere it as an amazing fragrance. That's not how it works. You can still use great quality materials and blend it in a way that doesn't smell very good. There's so many points to niche fragrance that frustrate me, and this video is a little bit venting into why niche fragrances suck. The most frustrating thing for me as a reviewer that likes to get hold of things to be able to review them is samples. Samples are hard to get with niche fragrances. At least that's my experience. Some people in America might have a little bit of an easier time, but in general, like if you go into some of the UK kind of high street shops that sell kind of some niche fragrances, not very many, they're just hard to get hold of. People don't want to give you samples. There's just no chance of you getting samples unless you actually buy a full bottle, and then they might give you some samples, but otherwise you're not going to get them, at least in the UK. In America, they seem to be super friendly and happy to give away samples, completely different in the UK. Hard to get samples. Samples feel very expensive, and then once you've bought a few, you don't want to buy any more because you spent so much already, and you know, you might have plenty of times I've paid for sample sets myself, not asked for them, just gone to the website, paid for them, got them, didn't like a single one, and I'm like, great, that's like £30 gone. And then, you know, I buy another sample set, and that might be another £20, don't like any of them. Some of them I don't end up even reviewing, so I don't even get ad revenue back for that. It's just money lost. And I don't end up selling them because who's going to buy them, because they're obscure niche and no one knows who they are. So difficulty in actually obtaining them in the first place is one of the biggest frustrations with niche. Another point that really frustrates me is people's, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, shit on one thing for being a certain price level. Something else comes along with the same price level at a lower quality and no one says anything. An example is Tom Ford with their fucking Fabulous and that kind of, the Cherry line and whatever. Those are very, very expensive and not that great quality. Generally, synthetic fragrances at an extremely high price, totally inflated to the regular standard line of Tom Ford in terms of the private blend. No one says anything. People rush out and buy them, no complaints. And then a fragrance at a similar price level that uses good quality materials, people will rip them apart, that they're a rip-off and a fraud and how dare they charge that much and it's absolute piss water, yet you go out and buy fucking Fabulous for the same price. And I'm just thinking, that pisses me off about niche fragrance as well. That there is this contradiction of thought. Limited edition fragrances where they say there's only so much, once it's gone, then it's all sold out, and then 6 months later, boomph, it's back again. And it's like, well, I went and bought it the first time because you said it wasn't going to be around again, and now it's back again. It's like, which one is it? Make up your mind. That's a little bit annoying. I would rather someone say, okay, this is the first batch and later there will be another batch, not once it's gone and then it's back again. That I don't think is cool. That is trying to encourage sales in the beginning and then releasing it later as a second wave to get even more money. I just feel like that is a trap and I don't like that. It doesn't feel honest. to me, and it's something that happens now and again, and it's kind of annoying. Another point that comes to mind for me when I think of niche fragrances is the transition that I see happening in recent times of niche becoming mainstream. This is becoming more noticeable with brands like Parfums de Marly, where they are pushing out fragrances that are not super high end quality. They're kind of high designer level quality, in my opinion, like the quality of Dior, Chanel, that kind of thing. They're matching that kind of quality level. It's not supernatural. They're definitely heavily mixed media. Not that it's a bad thing, I'm not knocking them on that, but I'm saying it's going into designer territory, and they're aiming more for mass appeal, like Leighton, which it just has that designer smell, mass appeal, which is fine. It brings in money, it brings in revenue, it's popular, people like it, I get it, I understand it. But niche is becoming mainstream, and that was not the definition of niche in the original. Niche was artistic, obscure, doing something different, finding something not mainstream. That is the definition of niche. But niche is becoming mainstream, which is losing the niche category. It's just a trend that I've noticed, and more brands are following it. It'll be interesting to see where that goes. You can even see this represented in some really high-end fragrances like Roja with Elysium, where he's coined in on the popularity of certain mainstream designer fragrances to create a niche version of popular designer. I'm seeing it more and more. While we're mentioning Roja, it brings me on to another point about niche fragrances that really annoy me, is the fakeness of it, the illusion that is niche. Whether it be a niche luxury brand that is pretending to be something it is not, such as a fake magical history of serving kings and queens and God knows what else with absolutely no evidence, or claims of them being a master perfumer where in actual reality they pay someone to make it for them and they're just a creative director. This kind of deceitfulness is rife in the niche world and no one is accountable. It feels just like bullshit to me, and there's no better kind of word to describe it other than that. It's a lot of fake kind of pretense that people buy into. Those are my frustrations with niche fragrances. There's many more, but I don't want to make the video an essay. Those are kind of the main points that kind of frustrate me a little bit with the niche fragrance world. Let me know what pisses you off about niche fragrances, because I'm sure you can think of a few that I've missed here, and I'll see you again in the next video. Take care, everyone.